What we'd like to do is go through Apex for you guys so you'll have an idea of what to do at home on the computer pre-season or post-season, so you can get your card set up for your GS2 or GS3 display. And then when you're done with harvest or planting, you can bring the card in, download your information, and view your maps and reports and things of that nature. So this is the main home screen of Apex after you start it up. And there's a couple things we want to talk about up here at the top. You've got your home screen, which brings you to this page. You've got your back and forward pages, so if you go somewhere you didn't really mean to go, you can click the back button, or if you want to go to the page you were on after you click the back button, you can hit the forward button and go back. The setup button is where we're going to start. Is where you'll set up all your client, your farm, your fields, your varieties, put your machinery in there, your various operators will go in there, and anything that you want to see on the screen or record with will go in under the setup button. The next button is our save button, and this is the button we'll use to save the data to the card so that you can take it from the computer out to the machine and the display. Right next to that we've got our unload button, and what this is, when you're done with harvest or planting, you can bring your card in from the machine, put it into your computer, and you can unload the information off of your card. The next button is the maps button, and once you've downloaded the information off of the card and you've got it into Apex, this is where you can go to view your maps and edit things and set up a legend or whatever, and we'll get into more detail here in a little bit. This button is a report. Again, after you've downloaded your information, if you want to do a variety comparison or you want to do a crop comparison or something like that, you can run several different reports to break it down into information that's usable for you. And the last one's GSDNet. Probably won't cover a lot on this. This is a internet-based information source where you can download new variety names, you can download dimensions for new machinery, soil maps, things of that nature, but probably is beyond the scope of what we're going to cover in this video. With that, we'll conclude the introduction and we'll get into each one of the individual buttons. Okay, the button we want to start with is the setup button, and that button is found right here on your menu button. And you're going to just click on the setup button with your mouse, and it's going to bring you up to this screen right here. And over here on the left you've got a big long table of different things that you can add or set up. So the first thing we're going to set up a client. So I'm going to click on client, which is the top on the list, and it brings up my existing clients. So I've got two in here, so I'm going to add a new one. I've got new, I've got modify, retire, and delete. Now new is obviously you want to add a new one. Modify would be if you want to change some of the information that you've entered on a specific client. Retire means that you no longer are using that client, however the data you've collected under that client in the past will still be available for you to view on your maps. It just won't show up in your menu. If you delete it, any and all information associated with that client will be deleted. In other words, you will not be able to use any of the map information that you had in the past. So the message there is do not delete it unless you just typed it in wrong and have never recorded anything under that name. So I'm going to click on new up here, and it's going to ask for some different things. The ones with the little red star are the ones that I must put in without exception, or else it won't let me enter that name. So I'm just going to type in Sloan Implement, and I can put an email address, an address in there, so I'll just put P.O. Box 80, and I can put the state and zip code, country, tax ID, so on and so forth, as much as I want. The main thing I have to have is a name in there. So I'm going to hit add to the list. So I add it to the list, and now it blanks it out. I can start a new one. It shows up here, so I've got my client entered. If I hit done, it clears the screen, and now I'm ready to either go over here and hit new again to add another one, or I can move on to the next thing. So I'm going to hit farm now. I'm going to add a farm. Okay, it brings up all of my farms. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to hit new, because I'm going to add a new farm. Notice here at the top, I have to choose an existing client. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to click Sloan Implement. And I'm just going to type in assumption. And again, you can put the address of that farm You can put the the tax ID number of that farm, the phone number, any of that stuff you want to add. So I'm going to click done. So I've added a farm now. Now I'm going to add a field. I'm going to click new. Now again, it asked me for an existing farm. Now the way the hierarchy works is you have the client is the overlying enterprise, or the entire umbrella that your farming operation is under. So if it's Sloan Farms, or it's whatever you want to call it, that is your client. Then you have the next level down is a farm, and a lot of guys you either use landlords or what they call that particular part of their farm. So you have Sloan Farms, and then you might have the home place as your farm name, and then as your field name you might have the home place 80 as the field name. So it would the home place 80 would be under the home place and under Sloan Farms. So I'm going to go in here, and we've got Assumption is my farm. So I'm going to type in my field name, and I'm just going to type in store. So that would be the actual field that I would be referring to. So the store is under Assumption, and it's under Sloan Implement. So I'm going to click done, and I've added a client, a farm, and a field. Now the other thing I need to make sure and add is a task. So I click on task, and I've got a list of several things here. If I see one that I'm going to use, so I'm going to say planting is the one I'm going to be using right now. It's already there, so I don't really have to add one. If I want to add one, again, I just click on new. I go over here and I type in a task name, and it's good to go. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to add another one. Planting is already in there. The guidance, if you were going to actually add a new guidance line, you could add a new one in there, or you could edit it, is more like what you're going to be doing. And you can come in here and maybe change the A point, or tweak a couple things, or maybe assign it to a different field or something of that nature. And that's what you're going to do under the guidance tab. The next thing down is our product box. And under the product box we've got crop. And I've got corn and soybeans loaded. And again, just like before, you can add new ones, you can delete them, you can do kind of what you want to do there. Varieties. Here's all the varieties that I have loaded. Again, at the end of the year, maybe there's a couple that you're not going to be using this year. You can click on those and you can hit retire, and they won't be on the list anymore. You won't have to wade through those when you're either setting up a card or things of that nature. So if I want to add a new one, again, I click new. I punch in my information on that particular variety. If I want to retire one, I just click on the one I want to retire. I click on retire, and it will no longer be on the list. However, up here, if I want to see a retired item, I can hit check the box, and it will show any and all items that I've retired. Fertilizer, much like variety, I've got 32 in there, and I've got a couple, beans with the planter. Again, if you're going to put down 28, if you're going to put down anhydrous, you can add your own fertilizer in there if you wish. Same way with chemicals. If you're going to put there's Roundup in there, and there's Counter. This is where you would add any chemicals that you're going to put down in a spraying application. Carriers. If you were going to put down some herbicide with a carrier of 32, there's your 32. There's water, obviously, would be most cases. But again, whatever your carrier is, you're going to want to put that in here. And then if you want to set up a tank mix ahead of time, so again, let's say you were putting down Roundup with a carrier of 32, you could come in here, you could hit new, you could put the tank mix name. So I'll just put 32 Roundup. And it tells me my base solution rate. So let's say it's 10 gallons the acre, and my carrier is 32. And here's where I would add the ingredients. So I'm going to say I'm going to put a chemical in. I'm going to put in a herbicide of Roundup, and I'm going to put in 1 quart to the acre. Whatever that is, you add that in there. Click done. Click done again. And now that's added to the list. So when you get to your screen and you go to tank mix, that one will automatically be pre-populated. You won't have to go in there and do it individually. Now you can, if you don't set up a tank mix and you've got your 32 in there and you've got your Roundup in there, you can create that in the GS2 or in the GS3 in the machine. My resources, and this is rather important, you're going to want to have this information, especially if you're running Swath Pro or you're trying to do mapping. Under your machines, you know, you've got all your information in here. Let's say we're going to be with an 80-30. You know, this is our machine that we're going to be using. We'll modify it a little bit. What I was referring to is in your screen, you can add this information in here, your A, B, C, and D. You can add that information in ahead of time, so when you get to the machine, it will already be pre-populated and you won't have to write that in a notebook and take it with you, or you won't have to get the tape measure out and do it at the time that when you get to the machine. So if you add all that stuff ahead of time, same way with your planner, which would be under Implement. Let's see, we've got a 1770-24 row here. Click on Modify. Again, all these dimensions you can add while in here, and it looks like most of them are in there. Once you add all that information in here, then it becomes populated in the screen ahead of time, and you don't have to do it while you're in the machine and get the tape measure out. Operators are pretty self-explanatory. You can add the guys in there that are going to be running the machines if you want to keep track of each individual's productivity. If not, you don't have to worry about that. Some of the miscellaneous things, flags, if you wanted to mark some tile holes, or you wanted to mark, you know, where you had, you know, a washout or something like that, you could put that in there and you could flag it, and then you could reference it once you came back into Apex. Flag it while you're in the machine. Just hit the box to mark the flag, and then you'll be able to see where those items are located and come back to them at a later time. The legend, this is probably not something you're going to do ahead of time. You'll adjust this when you get the information downloaded into Apex from the machine after a planting or a harvest season. A load name, this would be what you would be doing after or during harvest if you're going to keep track of loads. You know, each load would be a tank, or if it was a truck, and you were keeping track of where all that material was going. Maybe you've got a bin site, and you want to keep track of how much you put in each bin. You can set it up however you want it. Same way with the destination. You know, you tell it I'm going, you know, going to the ethanol plant, or I'm going to the bins, or I'm, you know, going to wherever you're going to go. And you can put that in there, keep track of that during harvest, and then at the end of harvest, you'll kind of have a good idea of where and how much of each crop that you have in each location. So that's going to wrap it up for the setup button, and the next thing we're going to go over is saving to the card. Now I want to talk about loading the items to the card. So to get it from Apex to the display, how do I go about doing that? Well, we're going to do that up under the Save button at the top row here in our button menu. So we're going to click on the Save button, and that's going to bring us up to our save screen. Now over here in the left-hand column, I've got all my different types of displays. Like the top one is a GS2 2600, or I've got an 1800, I've got a 2630 GS3, I've got a command center on a new 8R tractor, or I've still got the original Green Star display that I'm using to collect data. So what I'm going to do is, for this operation, or for this training, we're going to do a GS2, and it's going to be the same no matter what display you check. So we check a GS2, and the next thing that's very important is to select your card path. Many times this defaults to drive C, and if it's set on drive C, really what you did, and when you click save to card, it's just going to save everything right back to your hard drive, and you didn't get anything on the card. And when you get to the machine, there's not going to be any setup data on your machine for you to be able to use. So the next thing we want to use, or come down and set up, is we've got all these boxes here that we need to populate, so we can pick and choose what we want to save to the card. We can check all the boxes and save everything, which I don't recommend because then it's more cumbersome to get through while you're in the machine. So first thing we're going to do is click on Enterprise on the plus sign. Now I've got 3 clients here. I've got my sample client, I've got Sloan Implement, and I've got Thompson Farms. So I'm going to select Sloan Implement because we set that up a minute ago. We've got our farm as assumption, and our field is the store. Now I can click right here and it'll check all of them, or I can check here and it'll check all of them, or I can check only the ones that I want. If you had a longer tree, you could, if there was store and then maybe there was parking lot, you could check parking lot and not store. But I'm going to check the store for my enterprise. I'm going to close that one up. The next one down is flag names. And again, these are those flags that we set up that we want to save to the card so we can mark them. For this training purpose, I'm just going to maybe put in a tile outlet. Now notice it only checked tile outlet. If I check right here, it will check them all. It checked all of them, but I don't want to check all of them. I just want to check tile outlet. So I check tile outlet and I close up the flags. The next one is guidance. So if I had some guidance lines that I'd saved from a previous operation, I could go into my straight tracks and I could select my straight tracks, and then I could save those guidance lines if I wanted to reuse them the next time I went in there. Since I don't really have any set up in here, we're not going to check the box. My loads, again, my load destinations, grain destinations, I'm going to check a bin just for this. Again, we're doing planting right now, but I want you to get the feel for what you would do during harvest. My products, I got my crops. When I open up the corn, it shows all my varieties. Well, I'm just going to pick 2 varieties for now under corn, and I'm going to pick a couple under soybeans. Because maybe I'm not going to use these varieties this year. I'm changed my mind or couldn't get the variety I wanted. I had it loaded, but I don't have to check it, so therefore it's not going to the card. Fertilizers. If you're going to put down some 32, if you got a fertilizer planter, you could check your 32 that you're going to put down. I don't really have any tank mixes, but if I was going to select one, there it is, I could select it. So that's my products. My resources. Again, here's my implements. We're going to come down to planter, and we're going to select a 24-row planter, and it is right there. So we're going to check 24-row planter, 1770 NT. So that's what I'm going to use for spring. Close up my planter. The next one's my machine. I'm going to come down to tractor. I'm going to select my 8030. I'm going to close that one up. I'm not going to be using a utility vehicle, but you can add more machines in here if you wish. The last thing is my operator. I'm just going to put Matt. He's going to be my operator. So now I'm going to go ahead and close up my operators. The last thing I need to put in is my task. So we're going to go in here and we're going to select planting. Variety locator will be used in harvest, and we'll discuss that more at a later training. But that will only be used during harvest. So that's going to pretty much do it here for our setup. So now what we're going to do is come up here and we're going to go save to the card. Again, remember to go check the correct display and select the correct drive. So once I do that, I'm going to hit save to the card. It's going to save, and it says data was successfully saved to your card. I click OK, and I've successfully saved data to my card. Okay, now that we've got our card set up, we've got everything checked that we want to do, we want to talk about Variety Locator. Now, Variety Locator is so when you go from seeding to harvesting, the combine will automatically pick up what variety you're planting, that you planted, and so then it'll automatically record those values on harvest so that you can compare varieties without having to select the variety as you go through the field. It'll automatically change those variety numbers based on your geographic location in the field. So what we need to do is we need to come down here from our save button. We need to come down here and it says Variety Locator, and it says Set Up Variety Locator File. So we're going to click on that. And what this will do is it will bring up a list of any and all eligible, defined by the crop season, any and all eligible fields that are able to be set up as a Variety Locator file. So all I have to do is check the box that I want, of the field that I want to be used as a Variety Locator file. Once I've done that, I go over here, I click Done. I've already selected all of the implements and the loads and the products and everything that I want to do. So again, I go up here, I hit Save to Card, and it saves the card. Now I want to cover how to unload the card. So I've gone to the field, I've harvested my crop, or I've planted my crop, and I want to download my maps, download all my data so I can look at my maps and my reports. So I need to come up to the top into my button menu up here, and I'm going to click on the button that says Unload. So I click on my Unload button, and it says loading all available information. Now notice, again, my GS2 2100 2600, which is what we're using for this training, I have my card path selected as drive F. If this is drive C or it's the incorrect drive, you probably won't get any information over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this one particular field. And again, you could hit all files and it would select all your files, which is what I would recommend that you do when you're downloading a card that you've got a lot of information on. Go up and just click all files, or if you just want to see one particular field, check that field like I've done here. Go up here and hit unload. And it will give you a time of how much time, and it's usually, what this says is usually longer than what the actual time is. This one happens to be 1 minute because I've only selected one field. So it was successful. So as it goes through, it'll jump from, if you select all files, it'll start at the top and it'll keep saying successful until it gets all the way to the bottom. The one I selected is done, so we've successfully unloaded our card. Okay, now that we've unloaded our card, we want to go into our maps page so we can view the map and look at the different information that's available there. So what we need to do to view our maps is we're going to go here to our maps button. We're going to click on that, and it brings us to our maps page. Now over here I've got my list of clients, and the one that we downloaded was this DTK Farms, and I'm going to go to this farm, and I'm going to go to this field. I'm going looking at 2010 harvest data. So I click on the harvest data. The crop was soybeans, and I've got several different layers that I can look at. I can look at my variety, I can look at my elevation, my dry weight, my wet weight, my moisture, and my dry yield. Well, everybody wants to look at dry yield, so we're going to click on dry yield, and it's going to bring up our map. Now down here is our legend, and our legend is telling us based on the colors that we see. So dark green would represent a given yield, light green a given yield range, yellow a given yield range, so on and so forth. So, but we know that the dark green is a better yield than the brown, so it just gives us a visual reference of what we want to see. Now we can change our legend if we would like to edit it. If we want the green to be to be a certain yield and above, same with the light green. If we want it to be this yield to that yield, we can set all that up. We can also change the number of colors or ranges. Right now I have 6. I can change it to 8 or 9, or I can change it to 4. It just depends on how complicated or how simple you want to make it. But again, if you want to look at your maps and you want to see your yields, this is where you would come, and this is what you would look at to verify that your maps are there, and you can get a visual reference of what they are. Now down at the bottom there's one other thing you want to look at. It's your summary. Down here you got your legend tab, and this is our summary tab. If you click on that, it tells you when you harvested it, how long it took you, how many acres per hour, total acres, total dry weight, your average moisture, your average yield, so on and so forth. So this is just a little kind of a snapshot, overall high-level look at what your farm and field, what that particular field did on an average. There's a couple other tabs down here that are probably for a little bit more in-depth training. So right now we'll just stick to the legend, which shows you your legend, and or the summary tab, which gives you the information as an average on that field. Okay, we want to look at a report for our harvest or our planting data, and that's going to be found under this reports button in our menu at the top. So I'm going to click on reports, and it's going to bring up a big menu over here of what I want to see. Do I want to see a harvest report, a seeding report, a tillage report? What is it that I want to see? The other thing it's going to ask for is my crop season, so I'm going to select 2010. I'm going to select my DTK farm, and I'm going to say I want to see a harvest summary. So I'm going to click on harvest summary, and it's going to start loading my report. Now here's what it said for that one particular field. There's my area, there's my moisture, my wet weight, dry weight, average weight, dry volume, and average yield. Now this is taken straight off of that summary tab under the maps page that we looked at earlier. If I wanted to look at something else, I've got my variety summary, so if I had 2 particular varieties in one field, I could compare the 2 and how those 2 worked if I had my variety locator working. So there's several different ones that you can look at. And again, if you wanted to see your scale tickets that you'd entered, you could look at that here. A seeding summary, So if you wanted to see, how many seeds per acre I planted on a given farm, so on and so forth. But this is where you would use your reports, and here's an example of what one of those reports might look like.